Rated Gen Z, where real talks get real. Each episode dives deep into the minds of 18 to 24-year-olds, exploring their dreams, struggles, and perspectives that most people never hear. We're diving into the chaos that defines a generation everyone talks about, but nobody actually listens to. This isn't just a podcast. This is a generation speaking. Welcome to Rated Gen Z podcast. I am sitting here with Jordan, who has been very gracious about doing this in person. This is my very first one.
Cool, exciting.
IRL. So I appreciate you kind of experimenting with me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to do more of these in person.
Totally.
It's like a different experience. I'm so used to doing it over Zoom, and just having like the face-to-face is I think it's just going to be like a different conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. This is new to me as well, and I'm super excited.
Awesome. Well, I guess I do want to start out the fact that Jordan and I met through Pilates class, and which is a testament to where, community, you can find it anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm someone that doesn't have very many friends, and so going to Pilates every day for me, I feel a sense of community, and I've gotten to know a lot of the ladies there, and you're someone that we just started talking. I think I had a University of Arizona t-shirt on, and you actually approached me with it.
I did.
So there you go. Like, thank you for saying something to me and coming up, because now you and I have already had coffee together. And now here we are on the podcast, and I asked you to do this because when we had coffee together, you had some really insightful things to talk about, and specifically around religion and around you following your heart and following a different path, not the, I guess, curated path that most people
conventional
assume. Yes, the conventional path. So I want you to talk about that. And if you want to give a little bit of intro, you can. If not, we can just get right into it. It's up to you.
Well, thanks so much for that introduction. It's so funny because I joined this Pilates studio with the hopes of creating community.
Really?
And so, like, for me, you already mentioned, like, I am very strong in my faith. And that was a huge prayer of mine, like, not even joking, to meet someone or to just, like, get to know the people around me better, outside of, like, work, outside of school, because your viewers don't know this yet, but I actually work on campus with a nonprofit ministry called the Navigators here at UCSD, and I'm very heavily involved in students' lives, in young adults' lives. And so, this is just a gift to get to meet you and get to talk about, the things that I get to do now full time here in San Diego. So
wow. So your answers were your prayers were answered. Like, when they say that,
actually,
like, I guess literally they were, which is crazy. And I love that you're 23, 24.
I'm 23.
You're 23. I'm 49. So that's what's really cool about this is it's bridging the generational gap in a way that I think a lot of people wouldn't assume that, someone like yourself, your age, and myself would meet in Pilates and now have had coffee and sitting here having a conversation together. But I think that's what this podcast is about too. It's not just showcasing your age group, but also showing that there is so much relatability and so much commonalities and similarities. And so that's, for me, like, basically you answered my prayers in that respect too.
Wow. Isn't that cool though? I mean, these things are so unexpected, and I'm just grateful for the opportunities that can come out of, taking small steps of faith and not knowing the outcomes, but just trusting that, okay, if I think, I'm doing the right thing, or something is telling me that I'm doing the right thing, like, I'll keep going and see what happens. So
I love
here
it.
we are.
And here we are. So you graduated from UCSD.
Yes.
And you were on a particular path, and I want you to talk about that path and then where you are now.
Great. So I graduated from UCSD back in 2023. I believe, yeah, 2023, not too long ago.
I know.
And
We're already
so
20.
it's been
Yeah.
about a year and a half post grad. And while I was a student at UCSD, I studied molecular and cell biology. And I did that with the intention of going into dentistry. And so I took all of my prerequisites. I graduated a quarter early so that I could take my DAT, which is like the MCAT, but for dental school. I passed that. I was ready to send in my application, and I had already committed to doing 1 year full time of ministry post college. And I wanted to continue working with college students, continue working with the ministry that really served me, and the ministry that helped me find my faith in God and in the Lord throughout college. And so before I sent in my application, I just like felt this kind of prodding in my heart that did not come from me. Was definitely outside of myself, because it kind of told me, okay, you had these plans going into college. You spent the past 4 years, growing in this pathway to advance your career. And something was telling me, I want you to lay those plans down and trust me, not for 1 year, but for 2 years. And so here I am. I'm in my second year of ministry. I have not applied to dental school, but I'm just so thankful that I believe the Lord has like put me on this path to continue, helping college students know Him. And so that's what I get to do, and I'm so excited by it. And I think that, college for me, and I'm sure for you as well, was just such like a formative time in our lives, where we're not just finding out what we want to do for the rest of our lives, but who we want to be for the rest of our lives. And I kind of started that journey in college, and I realized, oh wait, it doesn't just end after these 4 years. It keeps going. But I really did like the direction that I was going in when I met people through the navigators who were just so focused and like so, I think, like filled with peace about their lives, even though they didn't know what was ahead of them in the next 5, 10, 15 years. And so that kind of, caught my eye and caught my heart. And I get to see students kind of experience the same thing now, who come into UCSD with really ambitious plans. It's really cool to see. We have students in our ministry now who are starting businesses, running nonprofits. It's truly like mind-blowing to see them. They're going on to medical school to become engineers, to law school, and in the midst of that, kind of pausing and reflecting and saying, well, if I have this faith in God, in Christ, how does that change the way that I become a doctor, the way I become a lawyer, the way I am with my family, how I want to raise my future family. And so it's really cool being at these crossroads, not just myself, but seeing other students at these crossroads, and seeing them choose to trust in something outside of themselves. So that was kind of a long answer to your question, but
it's interesting because as someone who is not religious, I grew up in a household where my father is Jewish, my mom is Catholic, but neither of them really practiced either faith. So it was just a very kind of tolerant household of like, we believe in something more. So I've known that there's a higher power, not necessarily if it's an entity, but I do believe in something.
Right.
And, there was a time in college, I will say this, that I was struggling. I had depression. And at the time, I was so lost that I turned to religion, to faith. And I remember at the time there were athletes on the football team that were going to the Bel Air Church. I think it's where Ronald Reagan used to attend.
Okay.
It was a really wonderful church, and they would have music, and it was like very youth based. And I remember going because I did feel like I needed community and I needed to meet people. But at the end of it, it really wasn't for me. Like honestly, it wasn't religion that I needed. It was so much more. I mean, I told you how I did have a failed suicide attempt, so I really was in a very dark place. But I do see that a lot of people that are in midst of struggle, or there's something tumultuous going on, they tend to turn towards faith, right? But the way you describe it and the way you're describing like the other students, it's not the case. It's very different. And I love that because I'm trying to showcase, different perspectives, because I feel like it's very polarizing when people talk about religion, because if you say you're religious and you mention the word God or Lord or Jesus, people who aren't religious, I will tell you, automatically get the sense of like, oh my gosh, like, what is this person going to try to talk to me about? Are they going to try to, convert me? Like, it's interesting, right? But like the way you were speaking about it with me the other day, and just the way you're speaking about it now, like, I love it, because I think it is important to be able to speak about it in a way for people not to feel this sense of like, oh gosh, here we go, like someone's going to start preaching
it's
to
always
me.
charged.
Yeah,
it
like,
seems
it's
like it, and it doesn't
interesting.
have to be, right?
And
It's just
you're someone that, like, I didn't feel charged. And so that's why I was like, I want to talk to you, because you shouldn't feel that way. Like, nobody should feel that way when someone talks about their faith.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? But like, for whatever reason we do, and that's why if we have more of these type of conversations, and the more people like yourself who start talking about it, people are like, oh, okay, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah, I could breathe here.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, have you like come across anybody or people that kind of do that? Like, as soon as you talk about your faith, they kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I need to run away or something. I don't know. Like, do you sense that sometimes?
Right. I think that's a great question. And I just appreciate you sharing your story, because when I think about how I share my faith, a lot of it is, well, just sharing my story and sharing my testimony. I don't know, how I feel about going up to someone and saying, this is how you need to live your life, or this is what you need to know. But more of like, hey, my life has been changed and I can't help but share that. And I want to get to know your story as well as I share my story. So it's very, two-way. It's not this like one monologue of like, I'm just speaking at people.
Yeah.
But of course, on campus at UCSD, I think it's really beautiful because we do have such a wide variety of representation from so many cultures, so many countries, different ethnicities and family values, where people are coming from different religious backgrounds. And it's really fun because the first week of school, we call it week 0, a fall quarter, we do this thing called fall launch. And so we go on campus and we share the gospel with students. We share what we believe, and we give them t-shirts in exchange. So we say, oh, do you have 5 minutes to hear this quick story about the Bible? And then that usually opens conversations. We don't try to share and get people out of our face. We want to get to know the people that we're, walking campus with. And for like example, our students are bumping into in classes, and they're living with each other in the dorms. And how can we have space for these conversations with the people that we're living amongst? But yes, to answer your question, we do have people who come up to us who maybe have, a lot of church hurt or negative experiences growing up in the church, or maybe they've been hurt by people who are of the faith, and that's just really hard to reconcile in their own hearts. And so we are mindful of that, and we try our best, to treat those conversations with as much compassion and respect, knowing that we don't know, what they've walked through, and we don't want to assume that that we can change their lives in one conversation. I think, kind of like how we met in Pilates and had coffee, and now we're here. It's just like, yeah, I'm getting to know you, and I don't have an agenda.
Neither do I.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think people, I feel like we all reach different conclusions of what we believe and what we think the best way, to live is. And I'm respectful of that. And I think it's actually enriching when we have more conversation of agreement or disagreement. And but yeah, on campus, it's been a lot of fun just engaging in not just like these kind of apologetics, because some people like to have those nitty-gritty debates about scripture or about different like philosophical or moral topics. Other people, they just want to be heard, and they just have a lot of hurt. And pain in their stories that they need someone to see and to hear, and we get to be that to them as well. So it's a really cool, like, mixed bag, I think, of experiences that we get. Yeah.
Well, I mean, people talk about, your inner voice and your gut and your heart and following it. And I know for you, you follow that voice, and for you, that voice was something bigger than yourself. And it was telling you that, you know what, dentistry right now isn't the path for you.
Yeah.
It's doing this. And, that is a very big difference,
Yeah.
And I know you touched upon it with me because I had asked how your family felt about it and if they were supportive, because, that's a tough decision to make.
Yeah.
So was it really tough, or you were just really adamant about, like, this is it, and then your parents just had to kind of give in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was tough for sure. When I made that big decision to not do dentistry and do ministry, that one decision came with a ton of smaller decisions. And those smaller decisions were like kind of little reminders to me that, oh yeah, like, there's a way out. There's a way to go back and do the thing that I thought, I was meant to do. And so as I was kind of wrestling with that, like, inner back and forth between, well, I hear what I think God's voice is telling me to do, and I know what I want to do. At the same time, my parents were also wrestling with the back and forth of, well, I know what the secure option for my daughter is, and that's to invest in her career. And it's less, secure to do a ministry full time, where she's going to have to fundraise to support herself and really put her faith in the work that she's doing. And I'm very blessed. My parents, we share the same faith, and so when I was talking to them about, I think maybe God might be pointing me into something else, at first they were surprised, which fair, because I was surprised when I first felt that call. But I think with time and with evidence of, God's faithfulness in the fundraising season and the onboarding season, when I was, getting trained in the job before I even got to campus. This was the summer that I graduated from college, so everything was happening super quickly. And my parents are definitely like my number one people that I go to for support. Like, when things get really real and really hard, it's like I call my parents.
But that's fantastic. As a parent of a 23 and 20-year-old, I love that they feel like they can come to either me or their dad. Like, that is a big testament to your parents too. That they've created that safe space of non-judgment for you.
Right. Yeah, they're some of the biggest, like, people in my life who are counselors, and also some of my, like, greatest companions. And so, yeah, like, going back to me kind of telling them this is what I want to do, but then also going to them when things got hard. And
knowing that they're not going to be like, I told you so, or you should have listened to me. It's more of like, okay, you know what, let's figure this out together and see how we can help.
I think through that time, they really showed me that, they were for me, and that even if they didn't understand fully what I was doing, they were trusting that, I was trusting in God. And I think that gave them some comfort, knowing that, okay, ultimately, like, they believe that, that, I am their daughter for some time, but, like, according to our faith, like, I am the daughter of God, who is above them even. And so seeing their humility in that and their surrender to God in that alongside me has just really helped me and blessed me in this work, because I work with a lot of really amazing people who don't have that same support from their family, or maybe their family does support them, but they don't share the faith, and so it's hard to understand. And so, I've just been super grateful. But I'd say, like, my parents, for sure, like, they see most into my life compared to maybe, like, my extended family. They still probably don't understand fully what I do, but that's okay.
I My parents don't understand fully what I do either. So I think it's just a generational thing sometimes.
Yeah, but I think that switch between, being a student and, seeing family at holidays, and they knew what I was doing. They knew I was, going to school and studying so that I could, advance the next steps. Like that all made sense in their minds. And so when I told them, oh yeah, I'm actually doing a complete 180, they were very confused. And I think they're still a little bit confused about, who I am and why I'm making the decisions I'm making. But yeah, I think above all of those things, like we sink deeper into like our relationships. And so I've still been able to grow close to them as well and get to know them on a basis of not just what we do, but who we are. So that's always been a good assurance to rest on.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you, I'm sure your parents can share this perspective, is like, as a parent, to know that your child trusts you and is willing to come to you as a parent, that's all you, at the end of the day, that's all you want for your child. I mean, that's why it's like, you're the parent, and you're not always going to be the parent, but knowing that there's still a level of that, there is something very like heartwarming as for us, like just to know, like, oh, okay, they might be older, but they still need us in some capacity. You know what I mean? Because there are some that kind of go off and are like, mom, dad, sorry, I'm good, don't need you anymore. And I've seen those relationships sever too, with their parents. And so just to hear that you have a really solid relationship with your parents makes me happy. Because it really does make a huge difference in someone's confidence, in their self-esteem, in their worth, and all of those things, self-love, everything. I feel like because of that, you can tell that you're someone that really is just very confident in who you are. I mean, obviously you're going to have your doubts and your insecurities, but you've got a good foundation. And I feel like with this decision that you made, I mean, it's a big decision, like it takes a lot of confidence to be able to stick with it. So good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that you are able to also acknowledge like what you're doing and be proud of yourself, and just really kind of reflect sometimes and be like, yeah, you know what, I'm following my heart, I'm doing what I feel is right. And like, do you ever think about that?
Yeah, thanks. I feel like I can't give credit to myself. Like honestly, all of the credit I give to God for just like the strength that I've been able to like endure so much through. Yeah, because if I was honestly trusting in myself, it just leads to so much just like chaos and stress and just feeling overwhelmed,
which is good. Like, I mean, I don't want to say it's good to hear, but I think it is good to hear, because I think what happens too is that like you can say all these things, right, but then you don't say that piece of it. Like if I fully trusted in myself and really listened to my inner voice, like up there, like it would be chaos, it'd be stressful, right? So it's important to share that there is a lot of conflict a lot of times.
Right. Yes. I think that is like getting to something that I strive for, is just like wholeness and steadiness. And I've seen a lot of, redemption in my own life, and a lot of growth in wholeness and steadiness. But through like my faith, I see that those things, I believe that those things don't come from myself. I believe that those things come from something outside of me. And so that's like the whole, I guess, essence of my life and my faith, is I'm constantly seeking and pursuing after God, who I believe is my source of everything that I need. He tells me that he loves me, that he loved me first, and so therefore I can love him and I can love others. That he has like made all things right, that he is the author of order and security and peace. And so I can go to him and receive that, and then go and make that in the world. And I think that before I knew him, kind of going back to when I was entering college, I also was going through just a really long, and it felt long, maybe like a year and a half or so, period of depression and anxiety. which started, I'd say, when I sent in my college applications.
Well, how
Because
was that in comparison to like the pandemic?
the
Was
pandemic, so the pandemic happened, I entered college in the fall of 2019,
oh,
and
okay.
then the following like
Spring
year,
year,
yeah, that
yeah, spring.
spring,
Okay,
we
all right. I'm just trying to get
yeah,
some
that's when we went.
a time frame there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's helpful,
Yeah,
pre-pandemic, post. This was like
yeah.
just before the pandemic started, and then I think a little bit into the pandemic. So yeah, when I entered college, I had already been kind of feeling a little bit hopeless. A lot of like feelings of despair, just confusion about my life, because I had been always just really high achieving in high school. I graduated valedictorian, top of my class. I was, on the varsity softball team, and I
Wow.
had plans originally to play in college, and I decided, no, I don't want to be a student athlete. I want to focus on my schooling so that I can, advance
Mm-hmm.
and like get into dental school a little bit with like more focus, a little bit easier. And so all of that coming into college, I realized, well, my GPA is wiped clean. It's at a 0 now. Um, I'm no longer a student athlete, so I'm
Yeah.
not known on campus
Right.
as someone who's, skilled or, contributing to their school name. And I'm just completely unknown at UCSD. It's a huge campus
Yeah.
with, about over 30,000 students.
Okay. So, oh
Um,
wow, because UCLA I think was like I'm close to 35,000 undergrad, and I
okay.
okay. So gosh, it is
Yeah.
comparable.
Yeah. UCSD, I think, is right below UCLA
Okay.
in enrollment. And so all of those, circumstances kind of created a perfect storm for me. And my freshman year of college, it was just hard for me I felt like I was in survival mode.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I could put it. And 2 weeks before I moved out to my dorm, this was going to be the first time I had ever lived alone. This was going to be the first time I was ever away from my family,
Yeah.
which was, exciting, but honestly terrifying more than anything.
Yeah.
And so before that even happened, 2 weeks before I moved out, my oldest brother actually went missing indefinitely.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
so that was just a huge source of, I guess, turbulence
Yeah.
and um, despair for my family. I think it was weird because I was grieving in a sense, but I didn't know where my brother was. Like, we never
How
found
old?
him.
How old was he?
He was 34. Mm-hmm.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so he went on a hike one day, and no one ever found him since. And so that all happened, together. And I think to me it was like the perfect storm of, well, I don't know what I'm living for at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know what's ahead of me. I don't know the purpose of what was behind me. And I had no desire to live at that point. And I'm so grateful because I had a single dorm room to myself. And so I spent a lot of time in my room just on my own in quietness. And I opened my Bible that I brought with me to college. And I don't know why I brought it to college, because honestly, I didn't think I was going to pick it up, but I thought, okay, this is, the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We'll just bring it in case I need it. And I started reading through the book of Job, which is like known as the book of suffering. And so
Mm.
in the story of Job, um, he's a very successful man, has a large family, he's very wealthy, and and the devil comes to God and says he's only following you because you've given him everything. And so if you take everything from
Mm.
him, he will surely curse you. And so God says, okay, you can take everything from him, but don't harm him. And so that's what he did. And in a single day, all of his children were killed, and all of his livestock, which was his source of wealth, were also killed, or they died. And he didn't curse God, and that was just mind blowing to me at first. And then the devil went back to God and said, "Well, if you took his health from him, he will surely curse you." And God said, well, you can take his health, you can afflict him, but don't kill him. And so that's what he did to Job, and Job still didn't curse God. And throughout the entire book, his friends come to him with kind of, shoddy advice of maybe this happened to you because of something you did, or maybe you're in sin and you need to repent. And all of their advice was ultimately wrong. He was just suffering because he was suffering. And that really comforted me, because I felt like, okay, I feel like I'm suffering just for no reason, and I don't see the purpose of it. But I know that I'm at kind of, the fork in the road here of my life, where I can turn away from God and say, it feels like you've taken everything from me. You've taken my accomplishments and my identity as this, high achiever, and you've taken now my brother from me. Or I can go towards my faith, towards the thing that I was, brought up in all of my life. And I thought, well, if I don't turn towards God now, I don't think I'll ever do it again. It just felt like the lowest of lows I had ever lived through. And so my freshman year, I, was still in survival mode, just barely getting up every day to go to class, to do my work. But then someone from the Navigators got my number through my suite mate, who she met them on library walk the first week of school. They tabled her, and then she invited me to go with her to the first Nav night. She didn't want to go alone, and I thought, okay, I call myself a Christian, so I should probably do that. Like, we'll just see. And the first night, the speaker was talking about how, we come into college with a ton of goals and dreams and aspirations, and these are good things. But ultimately, if we put our hope in the things that we do, if we put our hope in the things that we can accomplish, we will be let down eventually. But what would it look like to put our hope in something that will not let us down? And for some reason, I tell everyone that I meet, about the Navigators, and I tell them, I don't know why I kept coming back, because I was still anxious. I was still depressed. I didn't like being around community. I felt, very socially anxious. But something just kept bringing me back. And I don't know why. I'd go to Bible study every week, and I met just the sweetest girls who were involved in my life, who prayed for me, who, would make me cookies and bake for us every week.
Take note, cookies, they always work.
Yeah, honestly. And, ultimately, like, the cookies and the baked goods and those, like, kind notes, they didn't keep me coming, because I was still uncomfortable going every week to Bible study. But there was this one moment, one week, where we were reading a story where from the Gospels, where Jesus was meeting his disciples. They were in a boat, and they left offshore in this boat one night without Jesus, and they see him in the middle of the night coming towards them, and he's walking on water, and they're just afraid because they don't know who it is. And one of his disciples, Peter, he sees him, and he goes, Lord, is that you? And he's like, yeah, it's me. Come out to me, like, walk. So he gets out of the boat, and he's starting to walk on water, and he sees the waves around him, and he gets afraid, and he starts sinking again. But then Jesus says, no, like, keep your eyes on me, and you'll stay up. And that's what he did. And two things from that story that day, like, really struck me. It was that, like, Jesus was walking towards, his disciples. Like, he met them where they were. And I just felt like in my spirit, like, God was telling me, I'm meeting you where you are. Like, you don't need to be put together to, like, come to me. And that was just mind-blowing, because all of my life going to church, that never registered in my mind.
Like you needed to be like a perfect being in order to be able to, like, love him. I feel like that's kind of what happens. I feel like with a lot of people, they feel like they have to be this perfect being.
And that was confirmed all throughout my life, right? As I was like getting good grades, or
Yeah.
as I was doing well in sports, you know, people would praise me. And so I thought the same way about God,
Yeah.
that he would be happy with me if I just like did the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was the first thing that was just like, wow, I can't believe I never knew that before. And the second thing was, you know, Peter was able to walk on water because he was able to keep his eyes on Jesus. Yeah. And I remember walking back to my dorm that day. I had also, I don't know if it's agoraphobia, but it's like a fear of
that's a fear of like going outside,
yeah, like
right?
yeah, going outside,
yeah.
of like being outside of your home.
Yeah.
I struggled with that a
Did
lot.
you?
Yeah, that quarter. And I walked back to my dorm and I just felt like, wow, I am so free, because I feel like I have something that outweighs, I guess, all of like the weight of the world that I was like living under. And so, yeah, I don't know if that even makes sense, but
no. I think that'll resonate with a lot of people, no matter what, like whether or not they, you know, are religious or not. I feel like it's very relatable, because yeah, everything you just said is the perfection that we feel like we always have to. I mean, we're human.
Yeah.
We don't always have to. I mean, it's great to be doing the right thing all the time, but believe me, there's been plenty of times where I haven't done the right thing, but I have to also forgive myself and give myself grace.
Yeah,
because,
same.
you know, we are human. And then the other is like the focus, right? Is like, that's why they say keep your eye on the prize,
right.
You know, in the sense of like, if you can just focus and stay the course, then like you'll stay uplifted, you won't sink. So yeah, I mean, it resonates in so many different levels, for sure.
Yeah, totally. And you know, I'm so grateful for grace, because I still fall short all the time. And when I focus on just all the things that I'm aware of that I could be doing better, that's like where it gets overwhelming for me. But reminding myself that grace is literally, like, in the definition, it's something that we receive that we don't deserve.
Is that what you know what? Now that you say it, I'm like, what is the true definition of grace?
Yeah. So grace and mercy are like two big words that I like meditate on. Grace is, yeah, receiving what you don't deserve, and mercy is not receiving what you do deserve. So it's like being spared of something.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I never looked at it that way. That makes sense.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning so much.
Yeah. But I love that you brought that up, because I think this world needs so much grace. They need to see that there is grace for them. And I feel like we as people, we should be, you know, extending grace to one another, because we need it ourselves. So
yeah, and that is something, I mean, to in full transparency, even with this podcast and doing this, you know, there's that knowing that putting it out there, you're going to have people that are going to judge it, or they're going to say something. And it's like so important for people to understand that I'm coming from a place where I'm healing that 20-year-old, that person, that teenager, well, not even a teenager, that young adult that was suffering, that was depressed, that tried to take her life. She didn't feel worthy. She didn't feel deserving. She didn't think anyone was going to miss her, that anyone was going to care, right? And like, so I'm trying to be somebody that like I wish I had, you know, at that time.
And that's so good.
So it's like, it's having people understand that I'm not sitting here trying to like exploit your generation. I'm not trying to like, it really is like a healing process for me too. Like, you know, when I say I don't have an agenda, but I do, there is, you know, there's a reason for me to do this and to hear what you guys have to say, and just your story. And then, you know, I had no idea about your depression, how far it went, and then also your brother and all of those things, right? But like now hearing those stories, I feel even more of a connection to you, because I know what that feels like to be in those, you know, in some of those moments. And that's what everybody else, there's going to be so many people that listen to this are going to feel the same way. And so it's like trying to also be like, don't let the judgment or the people assuming certain things of why I'm doing this, or any of it, right? Like I have to just continue to follow the the path, which is like my passion, my purpose,
Yeah,
you know, all of those
totally.
things. So like you're reminding me too that even at my age, like it's a struggle because of the narrative too. Believe me, I have plenty of people in
Oh
my
yeah.
family that are like, what are you doing? You know, like by the time this airs, like I will have left my corporate job. Like I will be doing this full time.
Yeah.
And people are like, you're nuts. You know, some people are like, it's great what you're doing, but at the same time, how are you going to monetize? How are you going to monetize? Like,
Right.
that's like where their focus is at. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like, why would I make this my side hobby if this is, you know, my passion and this is what I feel called to do? And so I think you even starting this podcast is like an example of that.
Yeah.
And it shows at any point in your life, you know, if you have dreams and goals and a purpose that you just feel like, if I'm not living out of this, what am I doing?
Yeah.
It's like, you got to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's creating good in the world. And it's, you know, it's connecting people, it's connecting us, it's connecting you to so many people that you wouldn't have been otherwise, you know. So
yeah, no, and I love hearing everybody's stories, and it's just, yeah, it just fills my heart. Like even as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm like, I love that I'm here in this moment. Like yes, it's a little bit cold, but it's still beautiful out. Like we've got these like leaves that are falling and like the rustling of the tree. You know, it's just, once again, I'm not a religious person, but I do believe that, you know, there is something. Thank you.
Thank you,
she's like, you know, like greater, that's bringing us together and being able to be here in this moment. And I have so much gratitude in this moment, which, you know, as a gift.
Yeah, it's restful.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah, so I love going on walks around like this park and then the park across from us even. And on those walks, you know, at first I would put in music, or I would even sometimes do podcasts to make them productive walks.
Yeah.
Of like, how can I learn, or, you know.
Yeah.
But eventually I just took out my AirPods, and now I go on silent walks, and I focus on just how can I delight in the things around me. And I noticed, well, like the main things.
By the way, we live by Top Gun.
Yeah.
You're gonna hear like literally fighter jets.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's Miramar,
yeah,
right?
Miramar, yeah. So for all of you Top Gun fans, so that's like Maverick up in the sky right now. Crazy.
They're probably
jet.
way past us because we don't hear it until until they pass us.
Yeah, but
that's
anywho,
so funny.
Yeah, so that's a fun fact, guys.
Yeah.
But so you don't listen to music or anything. I don't either anymore either.
Yeah, on this tangent, I was just trying to get to on one of my walks, I was asking myself, why do I feel so rested when I'm just out in nature? And I realized, well, rest is just being content with how time is passing, you know.
Ooh,
because
I like
because I can be traveling,
Yeah.
I can be out with friends and having fun, or I could just be sitting alone at home, you know, making a meal or going on a walk by myself. And all of those things are somehow restful to me, or like working on a project at home is restful. And it's just, I just feel really content with how, like, I'm using the time.
Content. I like the word. I've been using the word content a lot more because happy is still like this joyful happy, but there's something about contentment where it's not like an extreme emotion. You're just like at peace. And I am finding that there are times where I'm like doing so-called nothing, but like I'm so content because I am like at rest and at peace, and there's something beautiful about being in that space. And there's not a lot of people don't like to be in that space because they're alone in their thoughts. They like think they have to be doing something, they're not productive. But I am now finding that when I'm in that place, that's like one of the best places to be.
Yeah, that's like, so good.
Yeah. So I've also been experiencing that and like practicing it more. And even on my walks too, I don't put headphones in or anything. Like
so nice,
I like to listen to the birds. We have a ton of crows around here too. So like, you know, the crows are going nuts sometimes. But yeah, like once again, the trees, the leaves falling, like I really am trying to be present. Because yeah, when you listen to music and podcasts, you're not present. You're out in like some other world. But like if you're like literally like in the moment, there is a sense of just peace.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
great. And I was just, like I was telling you, I was just in Tennessee for Christmas this month, and the trees there, I missed the fall when it was beautiful and orange and red and everything. But now all of the trees there are bare, which here in San Diego, we don't have, trees like
It
that.
looks like fall for us right now with these leaves.
Some of these trees, they shed, but a lot of them don't. And, being in Tennessee, I realized, in the past, I would have thought that like a naked tree was kind of ugly and kind of sad and depressing, but I'm just so grateful even for like the seasons of change and how it's necessary for a tree to give up its leaves and to be bare for some time, so that it can bear fruit in the future. And I feel like us and nature, there's so many, I love all of the metaphors and analogies and connections between just all things in the world. But I feel that way sometimes too, where like with the seasons changing, sometimes I feel like I'm bearing fruit, and sometimes I feel like these, trees that are like sparse and empty. But going back to contentness, just like being grateful for like the season that I'm in at the present time is so nice. And I think when we're out in nature and we're made aware of the things happening outside of us, it kind of like speaks to the things happening within us. So I also just love trees. I can go on and on about like all I've learned about myself from staring at trees, truly. But so
wow, I love that. Well, I feel like that's a perfect way to kind of end this podcast, is, the seasons of life, and we're in a different season. And no, you just had so many wonderful things to say and to be able to like look back on and think about, and like you're making me think about a lot of things, and I think that's important, right? Like we learn so much from each other. It doesn't matter what age you are. If you're older, just because I'm older doesn't mean that I know that much more than you do. You know what I mean? I've just experienced more. But so I feel like we can learn just so much from each other's stories.
Thank you. I look up to you so much.
Oh, thank you.
You really do inspire me, and thanks so much for
that.
having me.
Absolutely.
Just being able to share my story.
I'll have to have you back on, because I feel like there's so many more conversations that we could have.
That'd be so fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you, Raquel.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and would like to be a featured guest, go to rock.vision.